So, just to say a few words from me, artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, as mentioned in the title here, is a really interesting topic. AI has been a very hot topic, particularly over the last week, if you've been kind of listening in. Now, of course, we're in Liverpool, so I couldn't really not mention the Beatles, could I? And some of you will have noticed that actually there was a new release, a new Beatles song. Did you see that? It said the last, but who knows? And of course, it's called Now and Then, and actually that wouldn't be possible without AI. So that contribution to that digital legacy, already seeing AI help us with that, and we'll hear a bit more about that. Also last week was the first global summit on AI and safety. It was held in the UK at a place called Bletchley Park. You know Bletchley Park? Home of the code breakers. Now, I live quite close to Bletchley Park. It was one of our customary school trips. Very, very exciting, mainly because we knew we were getting hula hoops and wagon wheels. But beyond that, it was actually really exciting to see some of the work of the code breakers. And that was really cutting edge technology back then. But watching Elon Musk and the Prime Minister chat was a really interesting thing. And one of the takeaways from the summit was, if there was a consensus on risk around AI that perhaps the politicians, execs and thinkers could agree, it's about the glut of disinformation around AI. So let's not be part of the disinformation today. And as always in the hospice movement, let's lead. So, with that in mind, I've now got the pleasure of inviting and introducing you to Dr. Amara Nwosu. Amara's a researcher, a lead for Marie Curie Hospice in Liverpool, honorary consultant in palliative care at the Royal Liverpool University Hospital, NHS Foundation Trust. They get longer, don't they, the titles for hospitals? Amy's research interests include the evaluation of technology to support care for patients with advanced disease. And recently, with the Churchill Fellowship, travelled to the USA and also to the Netherlands to research how technology, data and design can support healthcare for people with serious illnesses. Now, I've had a little sneak preview, and this is an absolutely amazing presentation, so we're very excited about it. Just to say, please put your questions in the chat. We will be having a bit of a debate about this at the end. So can you give a warm welcome, please, to Amy? Thank you.
So thank you for the introduction. I'm Amara Nwosu. I've had a great introduction. I was going to introduce myself, and I'll do it again. So I'm a senior clinical lecturer at Lancaster Medical School, where I've been working in Lancaster since 2020. And I'm the research lead of Marie Curie Hospice, which I've been doing since 2018. And I'm working as a consultant in the Royal Liverpool University Hospital. And it's a real privilege to be invited here to do a plenary talk about a topic that I think is really interesting and important, artificial intelligence and emerging technologies in palliative end-of-life care, opportunities and challenges. And I think it's really important that we highlight this, that we talk about some of the opportunities that we have to really improve care and also to help caregivers and our staff, but also to be aware and to be able to vocalize some of the challenges that need further work. Now, we are in Liverpool, the birthplace of the Beatles. Because everybody here is so unique and creative in this room, I want you to imagine the future in the words of John Lennon. Imagine. Let's think about the year 2060. And I want you to think about an older woman called Emma. Now, Emma, in 2060, is receiving palliative care support at home. But in this technology-enabled future, she has home monitoring devices in her house, which is the so-called Internet of Things technology, where her appliances are all attached to the internet. These are things like her bed, her door, her kettle, her energy meter, her stairs. So when she gets up, there's data that goes about what time she gets up. There's information about if she falls. Her heart rate is monitored. How much she drinks is monitored. And all this information is being sent to people in her close circle, like her caregivers, her healthcare professionals, to help them inform her care. So that if there's a problem and maybe she's fallen, or if she's not as active as she normally is, maybe that triggers people to ask if she's okay. Emma uses hologram technology to relive moments from the past. This could be to remember people who have died, or to go over some conversations that she's had with healthcare professionals. Some of it might be for entertainment. And this provides lifelike holograms for her so that she can interact with them. Emma has got heart failure, and she's also got renal problems. She lives by herself, so she's got this AI-powered smart kitchen, which will produce 3 nutritionally balanced meals a day according to her specific nutritional needs and preferences. All she has to do is make sure that all the ingredients are stocked once a month, and this AI smart kitchen will provide her with a nutritionally balanced diet without her having to do anything. She has an augmented reality set and a virtual reality set in her house that she uses for socializing, but also uses for therapy. Because of her poor mobility, she finds it difficult to get to the hospital or the hospice to see the physiotherapists. So she's using augmented reality system in order to do the exercises that the physios and occupational therapists have recommended. And it's also a way that she can play with her grandchildren on their online games. And in her lounge, she has a smart wall, which when it's not on, it looks like it's a normal painting. But through this, that she can interact with multiple healthcare professionals when they're having an MDT discussion about her, so that she has the opportunity to be informed with all the discussions which are taking place about her care. Now, this is you imagining 2060. It's not happening. You're just imagining it. But how do you feel? Do you feel happy? Do you think this is great? This is like a fantastic future, that this is the future I want to live in. I want to be Emma now. Or are you feeling, oh my goodness, what is Amy saying? I don't like this at all. The only reason I'm here is because the drinks reception's in 40 minutes. And it's too far for me to go back to the hotel, so I'm just staying here and he's talking this nonsense. Or do you feel creative? Do you think, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity for research and quality improvement, and we can do all this? Or do you just think, no, don't like it, it's too much, don't like this? Do you just think it's a big joke, it's light relief, it's not going to really happen? Or do you actually feel quite angry about it? Do you feel upset? Do you think, this isn't palliative care, this is not what I signed up for? However you responded is absolutely fine, whether you had one of these emotions, all of these emotions, none of these emotions. It's important that when you broach the subject of technology, particularly artificial intelligence, people's minds are going to race to a different reality to them, and they may have one of these responses. But it's important to know that all of these responses are valid, but what's important is to talk them through and see how it can work and what we need to be aware of. So the aims that I have today is to provide an overview of my Churchill Fellowship, where I research palliative care technology, and just to share some of the things that I learned on the way and how it could be practically helpful. And secondly is to discuss the opportunities and challenges for artificial intelligence in palliative care. And I want to do this on a population level, a clinical management level, and on the individual and digital legacy level. So I've been interested in technology for a while, and in the past 3 years, just after the pandemic, I wrote a blog to the BMJ Supportive Palliative Care Journal of just my thoughts of how we could kind of harness digital technology in palliative care particularly. And I broadly discussed some opportunities, things like innovation, remote care, providing more choice for the types of care that patients might be able to access. But I also highlighted some challenges, like, does it work? Is there a risk of loss of human connection? Will increased digitization and use of technology just make inequalities even worse. So in 2022, a piece of work that we've been working on, which was an international Delphi study, which involved 2 rounds of international Delphi with palliative care experts and people interested in this area. We got people to look at a list of trending topics in digital health, which had been generated by the Future Today Institute in the USA, and we applied that to palliative care to come up with priorities for palliative care in terms of digital health. This is freely available from JMIR Aging, open access, and in summary, we came up with a number of priority areas, but we put these into priority themes. And we had 8 areas, and the last 2 areas, which are artificial intelligence and digital legacy, are the 2 areas that I'm really interested in. So I applied for a Churchill Fellowship to explore this in greater depth. And the Churchill Fellowship is the living memorial to Sir Winston Churchill, who is famous for being the UK Prime Minister on 2 occasions and leading an alliance globally with the threat of World War II. And in order to remember Sir Winston Churchill, who loved to travel and gain experiences from other places so that he could apply those solutions in the UK, that is the spirit of the fellowships which exist for any UK citizen. So I applied for a fellowship in 2020 and I was awarded one in the palliative care section. And my aim was to visit the USA and the Netherlands to research how technology, data and design can support palliative care. I was excitedly awarded this in February 2020, really excited about traveling that summer, but then the world changed. And I was actually quite worried that I wouldn't be able to travel, but I was delighted that this summer I was able to complete my fellowship. And in some ways, because of what's happened on COVID, the importance of technology is even more. So that wait for 3 years actually contributed to a more rewarding experience. So I visited the Netherlands, beautiful country, and I went to 3 centers. I went to TU Delft, which is the Delft University of Technology. So Delft is a wonderful small city, but the university is incredible. It is the 2nd ranked university for civil engineering in the world after MIT as number 1. And it's also the 3rd best university for architecture and aerospace engineering. So it's a very design-focused university that are now doing a lot in healthcare design. I also went to the Netherlands Comprehensive Cancer Institute in Utrecht, which do a lot of data analysis, and I visited Erasmus Medical Center in Rotterdam, which is the largest medical center in Europe. And I went to the USA, where I went to Boston, and I went to the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, which is one of the leading cancer institutes in the world, which is in partnership with Harvard University. So I spent time in Harvard, and also I had a placement in MIT as well. So Harvard is number 1 in terms of world rankings for reputation, and MIT is 1st in the world for engineering. So I was really delighted that my fellowship came together because it really contributed to me getting really stuck into technology and palliative care. So artificial intelligence is really the description of science and engineering of developing intelligent machines. And broadly, this can involve algorithms or a set of rules that the machine follows. And if the machine follows those rules and then gets correction or training, instruction from the human to work out what's correct and what's wrong, it can then mimic human cognitive functions, so start to act and think like a human. And it's been increasingly used in healthcare for different reasons. For example, with analyzing large data sets to recognize patterns and relationships and to identify proactive treatment decisions, And in the advent of so much of our data now being electronic, so moving from paper-based to electronic, this means it's now in a form that a machine can analyze, which is increasing the capability to use artificial intelligence in healthcare. So there's different types of artificial intelligence. You have reactive, which has no memory, so it only responds to different stimuli. So it's got an algorithm, but doesn't remember anything and just responds. Then you've got limited memory, which uses memory to learn and improve its responses. You then got theory of mind, where it's building on the limited memory, but is beginning to understand that humans are humans and need support, and they're there to kind of provide a function to human beings. So kind of imagine kind of R2-D2 kind of going around trying to help you. But then you've got self-awareness, which is what they were all worried about intellectually. Elon Musk saying AI is going to kill everybody. This is what they're worried about. Now, we're not kind of quite there yet, but I think it's important to kind of understand that when you say AI to somebody, they might think of different things. And if you're intellectually and you're a world leader or the richest man in the world, you're going to have different things that you're worried about compared to somebody who isn't. And you might think, okay, well, this is all futuristic, but you don't see AI anywhere here. It's we're talking about some distant thing, but you've all got supercomputers in your pockets right now that can do a lot of things using artificial intelligence. And I'll come to that. So, and it uses different methods for that. So learning is one of the methods that machines will use for AI. So in this situation, you have a radiologist who is putting in scans, and the machine is being trained, and the machine is learning what a normal X-ray looks like. And once it knows what a normal X-ray looks like, it knows what an abnormal X-ray looks like. And over time, the machine will get better and improve because it's pattern recognition. So, machine learning can, I think for chest X-rays now is kind of ridiculous. It's like 99.8% accurate in spotting differences in like normal X-rays and pneumonia. So this is what it can do over time. Natural language processing is the ability of a machine to understand written text. So this is where you kind of can give it the works of Shakespeare and it can understand what's been written down. And you may have heard of ChatGPT, and GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer Language Models, which is the ability of a machine not just to understand written text, but to then respond in a coherent way. And you can see the progress here is that, 2019 is we get GPT, and in 2020, it's able to pass US bar exams based on the information that's been given. And perception, this is the ability of a machine to understand images. So you can see that's a photo. We look at the photo, we know it's a girl holding a flower, but a machine needs to be trained in order to see that. So, you can see there that the machine is able to trace what the important features of that photo is. And then this perception is very important for things like facial recognition that you have on your phone. If you're driving a car that's got automatic speed limit warnings, again, it's using perception to pick out the road signs. If you've ever tried to log into a website on Google and it goes, please, prove that you're a human being by spotting all these road signs. What you're doing is machine learning. You're helping Google train driverless cars by spotting what a bridge looks like, spotting what a road sign looks like. You're training the model. That's what perception's all about. And then from this, you can build what looks like a human brain with a neural network. And if you layer these networks up, you get deep learning, which means that you no longer need a human being to tell the machine whether a car's a car or an X-ray is right or wrong. It's able to use different aspects from the neural network, from existing knowledge, to go, we don't know what that is, but based on what we've learned previously, we can estimate that this is a car. So with deep learning models, you no longer need a human. The machine begins to act like a human by itself. So day-to-day examples of AI are things like facial recognition. Social media, the fact that it puts the things that you're most likely going to want to see is based on algorithms on your data and other people's data. Email has got spam filtering software, and if you use Microsoft Office, it'll give you a focused inbox of the things that you're most likely to click on and everything else. Web search is algorithms, you'll type something in, and most commonly the stuff that you're looking for is in the top two or three hits, but there's thousands of hits. Voice assistants are learning all the time by what you say and what other people say. And navigation apps are a great example. It's, if you all search here of the best way to get to the Royal Philharmonic, it will give you a slightly different answer based on whether there's been a crash or whether there's congestion, whether you're on a bike, whether you're walking. Banking will do, sometimes it will take £1 from you whilst it just is checking to make sure that, you're in the country and you haven't spent money in a different place, and that the person that you're spending money from, buying from, is an actual legitimate, and it might decline the transaction if it feels that these things don't add up. Those aren't human beings doing those checks, they're machines. And streaming services, Netflix is a great example. It will just kind of give you recommendations based on what you've seen. So how can AI be used for population level analysis? So for this, I went to the Netherlands, and I traveled there for 2 weeks, and I took my family with me. And we kind of went to Delft, and we kind of went up the Euromast in Rotterdam. This is one of the professors I was with. We went bike riding in Amsterdam. We went to the Kinderdijk. Loads of things. And big data offers an opportunity to use AI on a population level. And big data describes a large amount of previously unmanageable data that can now be processed with modern computer techniques. So you can see here that you've got a person level, service level, and area level. And we're going to be talking about the area level. So anybody that goes to the EABC last year might have seen Professor Joachim Cohen, and he came up with 6 areas which have potential from big data in palliative care. So I'm not going to go through all those things, but I'll touch on a couple of them in the next few slides. So this is me in Utrecht, and an example of big data is using things from national data for healthcare decisions. So in the Netherlands, they have the Netherlands Cancer Registry, which is data on all Dutch patients with cancer, which is 2.7 million. Everybody goes on this. It's open source. It's anonymous. If you want to do a study with their data, it's freely available. You can contact them, and they will release it. And it's managed by this organization in Utrecht called the National Comprehensive Cancer Organization. And some of the people here are really, really smart. And I asked them what they were doing in terms of palliative care, and they said, oh, well, we're doing some real-time guidelines. We are mapping our data in Google Maps. We are visualizing data in real time, and we're doing research in federated learning. So I'll talk you through it. So this is an example of lung cancer data in the Netherlands. And you can see that the red is where the higher incidence is. So they can put different layers on this to show where the healthcare centers are, what the age of the population is, where the train stations are. They can do this in real time because the information is constantly updated. And then they can take data from the Netherlands and just use expertise from the rest of Europe because of how their data is all coded the same and entered the same. So, for example, this is a study which is describing young patients who got breast cancer. The data is anonymized and then linked with the histology, and then is sent to pathologists all around Europe, and who then give treatment recommendations, which then gets passed back to the Netherlands. So, they're like, if we want to get our patients the best care, we'll use the knowledge from the whole of Europe, not just Europe, by using our data intelligently. And they've also used AI to visualize outcomes. Up here on the left, these are guidelines. So these are 2 sets of guidelines. So imagine this is NICE guidelines. Imagine these are SIGN guidelines. They use an AI tool to pull in the guidelines into their electronic patient record system here. So imagine this is your hospital with 1,000 patients and new guidelines about a particular disease has just come out. The guidelines could be used on real patients or dummy patients to look about what interventions or treatments should be given. And then they'll generate figures on what the recommendations should be and what that actually means for your patients. And then they'll use this dashboard to give you real-time data for how you're adhering to the guidance locally or on a national basis. And then they'll pass back this data to the people who wrote the guidelines to see whether or not they want to make any changes. And there's this thing called federated learning, and the best way to describe it is probably to give you an example. Imagine I'm here in Liverpool, and I want to find out what the survival data is for adults with renal failure who have core compression after they receive radiotherapy. And I want to compare it to Liverpool, to Rotterdam, and to Boston. Now, the problem that I'll probably face is that they'll go, ooh, patient records, ooh, privacy, ooh, governance, ooh, coding, ooh, not quite sure, But this thing called federated learning can address these problems by using algorithms to collect and analyze this data without any information being shared. For this to work, the data's got to be recorded the same, with the same kind of in the same way in these areas. But if you can send an algorithm to ask the question, so imagine you've all got data, and I want to ask the question of what's 2 + 2. I don't necessarily need to have all that data. If I can send you guys the equation, you can calculate the equation on your data and just send me back the answer. You don't need to send me the data. So that's what federated learning does. The analysis is done rapidly on the standardized data sets, and then the information is sent back to the researcher here without any data being shared. So this is what they're doing in Utrecht all the time, because with cancer data, it's all coded in the same way. So they can ask this kind of question, and they can ask the same question with other healthcare organizations around the world that also use the same standards. So that's the first one. So AI for clinical care is the next question. And for this, I went to Boston, Massachusetts. And again, took my family along. And there's me, Isaac, my eldest, went to Boston Red Sox game. And this was us up to 3 hours on the Boston Freedom Trail. Here's me in MIT. And again, met some wonderful people. And from the people I spoke to, they showed me their research and they told me how they were using AI to identify palliative care needs of patients. So again, electronic healthcare records, all the patients were there. They use an AI algorithm to rapidly analyze all the notes to work out how many patients are at risk of needing to be seen by the palliative care team. And lots of studies in the USA to estimate survival. And some of the reasons might be because of the insurance system. To qualify for hospice insurance, get your insurance providers to pay the hospice tariff, you have to be in the last 6 months. So this is why, having data to predict when people are going to die is quite kind of important in that US system, but it's still quite useful research to have. You can do AI to analyze symptoms. So again, electronic healthcare records, you're using tools to analyze the notes to work out severity of cancer pain. And this study I really like. So this is over 1,000 patients with metastatic cancer, and the natural language processing, which I mentioned a few slides ago, which is the ability of a machine to understand the written text. What they did in this study was they had their 1,000 patients, and they trained the natural language processing tool to read through the notes rapidly to work out whether pain was mild, moderate, or severe. So from this 1,000 records in a few seconds, they were able to have this is how many, like 30% of people describe, severe pain, 40% of people describe this pain. So now that you know this, based on purely what the clinicians have been writing, because this is we all know we should be using pain management tools, but we don't. So, but if you think about the way that people might write, oh, this patient's got severe pain, not responding. So the AI tool was understanding what was being written and the nuance and putting people in different groups. So once you know this, you can then go, well, is there a difference in quality of life between those people? Is there a difference of opioid use between those people? Is there a difference of, pregabalin use between those people? So it gives you a different way you can do further research to understand those people better, so you can provide better care for them. This is Charlotte Linville. So she had a lab in Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Harvard, and her lab was about using natural language processing to capture palliative care quality measures. And again, she's probably one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. And this is all work that's come out of their group. So they used AI on administrative data to determine palliative care quality. They used AI on the patient records to look at goals of care discussions. So, when we might kind of call this, identifying kind of ceilings of treatment or kind of patients' wishes and preferences. To identify people who had received gastrostomy and end-of-life documentation, and then people who were trauma patients who had received palliative care input. This is Dr. Isaac Chow, and he described how he'd used natural language processing and automatic transcriptions and consultations for advanced care planning. He described the current system, which we all recognize, where the kind of humans will screen notes and work out, oh, this person, we think he's going to last, the year of life, and then, we'll kind of meet with the patient and get serious, they call it serious illness conversation. That's what that stands for, serious illness conversation. So we'll have a palliative care conversation. You'll then typey in the notes, and they go in the notes, okay? So what Isaac has developed is use AI to find people who might be at risk of dying or people who could benefit from a palliative care review using the AI tools that we've talked about. And then these patients will then get an email giving them with a link to a chatbot where they can kind of be offered, some people in your situation might benefit from speaking to a palliative care, nurse or doctor. Is this something that you want? I'm just a chatbot, but you can ask me any questions. Why don't you put down the top 3 things that you want to speak to the palliative care person when you see them? So then this leads to an earlier meeting compared to here with the healthcare professional, and but the healthcare professional doesn't write anything because it's recorded. It's automatically recorded and transcribed using the same speech-to-text software that you might have sought to appear in Microsoft Teams. If you're in Microsoft Teams meeting, you get a transcription. But once you have a transcription, provided the transcription is accurate, that goes in the notes. And once it's in the notes, you can do natural language process analysis on it. So, sorry. Look, I spent hours doing that, and I didn't forgot I did it. Right. So AI then can be used to support the individual and digital legacy. So this is Professor Elaine Casket, and she highlights how there's there's an increasing number of deceased users on social media. And she asked the question of who controls the data of the deceased, expecting a 4.9 billion accounts of dead people on Facebook in the next century. So how will you control your data? And what are the opportunities and challenges with this? So digital legacy is increasingly important in palliative care. So some of you may have met or heard James Norris speak. So if not, I'd highly recommend that you have a look at his material. He's provided a lot of free tools for hospices and palliative care about how you can be aware of digital legacy, and some really useful guides about how you can have conversations with patients and just give them advice about what to do with social media pages and things like that. And then we also have a paper out with Sarah Stanley, who's a PhD researcher and research nurse at Marie Curie, This is currently the paper of the month of palliative medicine, and it involves speaking to healthcare professionals in Marie Curie Hospice Liverpool, finding about their views of supporting people's digital legacy. So there's a QR code there, but again, it's open access on palliative medicine. If you just search digital legacy, palliative care, it'll probably pop up. So AI technologies could influence our digital legacies. So examples of this are chatbots, holograms, avatars, and AI assistants. So for this, I went to MIT, and again, I met some just incredible people. And this is Dr. Nathan Whitmore and Dr. Ruby Liu. Dr. Nathan, he spoke 100 miles an hour and spoke more than I did. It was exhausting to listen to, but again, just incredible. I had to go for a lie down, literally I did. And they've both described this work that they've done called Living Memories, AI-generated characters as digital mementos. I thought, oh, that sounds interesting, tell me more. So Nathan pulled out, he pulled out a laptop from nowhere, and he showed me, and showed me this. He said that they'd recreated Leonardo da Vinci as an AI character, as you do. They'd taken everything that he'd ever written, all the biographies, and they'd created a kind of a digital kind of wall that you would go to, and you could ask a question. So, like, here it is: what is your perspective on art? And Leonardo da Vinci is saying that I believe that any artist must be a philosopher. And they made a phone version of this, so you could have it on the go. But what I found really interesting with this kind of ChatGPT AI was this. So panel C and D. So I'll just read it out to you. It says, potential applications of living memories are to help people remember and mourn, and D, preserve culture and learn from people from the past. So I asked them, oh, do you know what palliative care is? I don't know what palliative care is, but have you ever worked with anybody from healthcare? No, not really. So you have MIT researchers who are developing something which has got palliative care and bereavement implications, but they didn't even realize that what it was. And you might think, okay, that's interesting. So, like, who else could be recreated as an AI character? And the answer is Cicely Saunders. So this is from last year. She's been recreated as an AI chatbot. Exactly the same thing happened as what I've just told you. Everything that she'd written had been put into this AI machine and then had a ChatGPT conversation with Professor Justin Sanders, who's a palliative care consultant from McGill University. And you might think, oh, again, let's go back to those Mr. Men characters. How do you feel about that? But the thing is like this technology is here. We're not talking about something that might happen. It's already here. This can ask some quite important questions, and this leads on to holograms. So here we have holograms, and on top left, we have Michael Jackson. Now, Michael Jackson died before this, but he performed at the 2014 Billboard Awards as a hologram, as did Tupac Shakur in 2012, performing at Coachella as a hologram. They didn't consent to this. They didn't say, I want to perform at these concerts, but here they are. Just in the same ways that Leonardo da Vinci didn't consent to be recreated as an AI chatbot, and neither did Cicely Saunders. But who owns your digital data? Who owns you? Who owns your face? Who owns your likeness? Who owns your voice? All right? If you're being recreated as a hologram, who decides which era they recreate? Did they recreate you as a child, as an elderly person, when you're 20 or 30? And on the right, this is Robert Kardashian. Now, I know that lots of you are watching the Kardashians, but just won't admit it. But this is Robert Kardashian, and this is Kim Kardashian's father. He was a lawyer, and he died in 2003 with esophageal cancer. Now, Kanye West, who was Kim Kardashian's husband, for Kim Kardashian's 40th birthday, worked with an AI team and the hologram experts to recreate her father as a hologram, who then delivered the message to Kim Kardashian 17 years after he died. Kanye West wrote the script. So again, he didn't consent for this. And just to read this out to you, For my birthday, Kanye got me the most thoughtful gift of a lifetime, a special surprise from heaven, a hologram of my dad. It was so lifelike, we watched it again over and over, filled with emotion. The whole thing's about 2 minutes, so I don't want to play the whole thing, but I will hopefully, this will work. I got 30 seconds of it. Do I just press next?
You are the most amazing mother to your 4 beautiful children, and they are perfect. Keep doing what you're doing, Kimberly. You are a beautiful soul. Know that I am very proud of you, and I'm always with you. I have built a firewall around our family. I love you, Kimberly. Tell Courtney, Chloe, and Rob I love them and miss you all. Don't forget to say your prayers.
So, now's probably a good time to talk about the ethicists I met. So this is going back to the Netherlands. So I went to Delft University, as I mentioned before, and spoke to some designers. This is Professor Judith Rietjes, and she's an amazing woman. She is a professor in human-centered design, but she works between Delft University and Erasmus University, and she's doing a lot of work of decision-making, evaluation, determining, how you have good design that leads to patient improvement, but also what do patients think about it, and what do the ethicists think about it. And something I really enjoyed was meeting the student Erasmus researchers, and this was following a debate that I kind of stumbled into. They invited me to a meeting, and there was an ethical debate about AI technology, and they just invited me up onto the stage, so I took part in this debate, which was a lot of fun. But it was great to see people talking about these topics that we're talking about in terms of a design and ethicist point of view. So we're coming to the end now. So the cheery thought is just imagine your own funeral. And the reason I say this is, who is going to be, who's most likely to give the most accurate information about your life? Is it a human, or is it the supercomputer that's in your pockets that you might have been putting in information for the last 30 years? Imagine if Google and Siri, these assistants, imagine if we kind of called them AI helpers, and at some point, the generation of young people coming through will give them the choice of, are you happy for these smartphones to kind of proactively and deliberately start to curate your digital legacy, so that when you die, future generations can learn about your life? Do you want to enable that function? Because if they say yes, then this is Cookie, who's an award-winning AI that you can chat to online, but they could kind of use all your photos and the geo data. What was the date that you went on that beautiful holiday in the Maldives? It will know, because it's all geo-cached. It may have everything that you've done on social media, everything that you've written, to understand what your text is like. So think about Cicely Saunders and Leonardo da Vinci and the books that they've written. Over a 30, 40-year period of you messaging WhatsApp and writing emails and replying to things, the machine is probably going to kind of understand what your syntax is like and what your prose is like. So we'll probably be able to respond like you. And it can use Bing Images, AI image generator, and ChatGPT to sound like you, but also to provide images of what you would look like. If imagine you really like science fiction movies, so after you've died, you're being generated as this person. Maybe you have holograms like Robert Kardashian. And you could use the Pokemon Go augmented reality technology so people could find you in the places that you want to be. This is in Japan. So rather than going to a graveyard to see people that you loved, why not go to the places that they actually enjoyed to be and use the augmented reality technology, like as if you were catching a Pokemon, to catch your, Anyway. And then this is a grieving mother using VR to see her deceased daughter. So some opportunities. You could use personalized care, have personalized care to individuals and populations, like we've seen in the Netherlands. We can have improved efficiency, as we've seen in Boston, where you can use it to better capture what your patients look like, better understand the needs of your service. You can get real-time data analysis, as we've seen in the Netherlands. We can develop new interventions, as we've kind of seen from things like, if you can understand how many people have got severe, mild, moderate pain, then maybe you can work out better ways to intervene for those people. Can do new forms of research, like federated learning, and it can help you develop and create digital legacies. Whatever you think about the use of holograms and ChatGPT, these are new opportunities for people to be remembered. And every technological revolution that we've had, people have used technology, whether it's a statue, whether it's a pen, whether it's paint, whether it's photographs, whether it's video. People have always used those technologies to remember people who have died before. AI isn't any different from that. It provides opportunities for us to remember people who are dead. But some challenges, bias. So an algorithm, if you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. If you train something badly, it's going to give you kind of wonky results. So, and the wonky results could cause inequalities not used well. For example, imagine you've got data on 1,000 patients, and you want to treat their blood pressure, and you get recommendations based on that data, but you realize that the data doesn't represent people who are black or from a particular genetic group. So now the machine is giving you recommendations which could be detrimental to the care of that patient. It could cause inequalities, couldn't it? In MIT, they told me something quite alarming, that the lung cancer machine learning that they were using was accurately diagnosing whether people had cancer or not, with like over 99% accuracy, but it was also seeing things that were correct, but humans couldn't see. For example, it was able to accurately identify which patients were black and which patients were white. And furthermore, it was able to identify which patients were receiving Medicare, which is what you get if you're over the age of 65, and Medicaid, which is what you get if you are poor, basically. The humans couldn't see this and didn't know how the machine could. They had a theory it was something about bone density of the X-rays. But the challenge that you have, if you think back from the earlier slides of deep learning, imagine a machine making decisions and recommendations based not on a human being. Imagine this technology giving you advice about whether somebody should receive chemotherapy or radiotherapy, and it's pulling data that shows that people in America who are black have got poorer outcomes. People who are from a social deprived group have got poor outcomes. It might have two identical X-rays of one person that's white and one person that's black, one person that's rich, one person that's poor, but will give you different recommendations, maybe saying that the people who are, socially disadvantaged shouldn't receive that treatment because the data shows that they get worse outcomes. If it's used incorrectly and not used well, this could increase inequalities. So this is a problem that the researchers are trying to deal with, is if you're a clinician and you don't understand how the AI is making these decisions, but they're making decisions which actually could be detrimental, just based on the evidence that the machine's using, what do you do about that? The lack of expertise. So that follows on for the last point. This is complicated stuff, isn't it? If you've got a black box and it's telling you, treatment A versus treatment B, but you don't understand how it's going to work, then what do you do with that information? Also, lack of infrastructure. The federated learning slide. Let's analyze data between Liverpool, Rotterdam, and Boston. Sounds great, but you need to have the infrastructure, don't you? You need to make sure that things are being recorded and coded in the same way. And we're currently living in a health economy where it's difficult to plan for the next 5 years and for the next 20 years. Also, cost and maintenance issues. These things are expensive. You need the right tools, and what happens if there's a problem with the algorithms, and who's going to be responsible? And that takes us into trust, governance, ethics, and ownership. Imagine that you have an algorithm that gives you a recommendation and the patient is harmed. Who's responsible? Is it the clinician? Is it the software? Is it the trust? Who takes responsibility of a machine giving you bad advice? So in order to try to improve this, I had funding from NIHR And we put on a digital legacy in design and technology networking event. We had the first one met in Liverpool in September, and we had about 40 people from sociologists, ethicists, technologists. It was great. And we have another meeting coming up in March. The aim is to try to get people talking together so we can do research together. The meeting is going to be free in Liverpool. There are limited spaces, but if people really want to find more information, then please contact me. So final thoughts, AI is already here. These images that you saw, these nice pictures, they're produced by Bing Images. The people who are eagle-eyed can see that. So I asked Bing to paint these pictures for me. So give me a picture of a boy meeting his digital self in the metaverse. Give me a picture of a woman, with a smart kitchen. And also the story of Emma. I asked ChatGPT to give me a story of an older woman in a 2060 in the AI future and how she receives palliative care. So that whole story was written for you by ChatGPT. So in conclusion, AI is already present in various forms, and there is potential to influence palliative care from a population, clinical level, and individual and digital legacy level. I believe we should focus on the practical applications of AI in palliative care rather than binary debates of its virtue. So AI good or bad, AI friend or foe, might be useful debates, but imagine AI is your next door neighbor. They've bought the house, they have a mortgage. If you go, I don't know if he's good or bad, well, guess what? Like, he's cutting down your fence and, like throwing things over. Like, you've got to try to have a relationship. So I think AI is our next door neighbor now. We have to have a relationship. And in order to have this relationship, understanding we don't have all the answers, I think, is crucial. And sociologists, ethicists, the public, they've all got important designers. They've all got like a view on this. They've got expertise. We should be making those connections with those people. And specifically, I think we need to do more research about generic, publicly available AI tools, like things like ChatGPT and Google Photos and things like that, because these are the things on a practical level might benefit our patients in the short term. So this is just a slide of all the images that I've had, and I just want to say thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. I told you were in for a treat. It really was a treat, wasn't it? And very thought-provoking. I'm really conscious we started a little late, and no, you're absolutely fine. And I'm sure you'll indulge me, because there are just a couple of questions I would like to just ask on your behalf, because I think it would be good to do that. But also, I think you are around today and tomorrow afternoon, I think.
Tomorrow afternoon, yes.
And also, there is another session around ethics on the programme as well, so just to look out for that. Thank you for your questions. There's lots and lots here, which, many of which actually I think you covered, but through the presentation. I think one of them really was about hospices with sort of limited resources. How can we get involved? How can we engage? Because, and there was a second question about who's going to fund it. So they were kind of linked. So how could we start? Where do we start?
So I think that's a really excellent question. And what I would say is that let's think about the person first. Rather than thinking about the AI, let's think about what the human need is first, because I think that's crucial. So where can we start? It's important that, I'll give you an example. I think that there's publicly available tools that could be useful to help people be remembered. So I'll give you a story, and I've got consent from Sarah Stanley, who's one of the research nurses I work with, whereby there was a death in her family, and her mum was driving her car, and the person who died had a mixtape, which was really important to them, which would be played through the tape cassette in the car. But Sarah's mum got a new car that didn't have a tape player. And there was music on this tape that we wanted to kind of pull out, that she wants to pull out, but we didn't know what some of those songs were. So what we did one day in the hospice is that we kind of brought the tape player in, played it, and then we used, we could have used Shazam or SoundHound, but Sarah used her phone, which had the built-in, and was able to automatically recognize the songs, which we then immediately put in the Spotify playlist onto a USB stick. So then she then had that to give to her mum. So it doesn't necessarily feel like AI, but it is, because it's the AI software which is automatically recognizing the music. And similarly, photographs is another example. How many people have got old photographs that are lying around in albums, maybe with people that you don't know, but you've got facial recognition software that's built into Google Photos, whereby either prospectively or retrospectively, you can start to kind of work out who's who from family albums. So these are like simple ways where you're just using the technologies which are already here, which could be quite useful for people who are around the bed grieving, who feel like they're helpless, but who probably got young people in the family that would be quite proficient of maybe going through all of the, you hear these stories of people going through and clearing out all of the material and the photos and not quite sure what to do with them. But there's a way that you can digitize them and have things tagged to help people remember people who have died.
That's really helpful. And I know I'll ask it because I'm sure you're all thinking, are you aware of any funding opportunities that we might be able to access? Because and I guess I might caveat that by saying that, earlier on today we heard about collaboration, and maybe there is something, this is a topic and an area that we could think of coming together on. But
yeah, so I think there was a presentation. I can't remember who was talking about. I think it may have been Brian Hudson. I'm trying to think. So somebody was talking about where all the funding from palliative care was coming from, and I think you can look specifically for AI, and there may be some NIHR schemes for that. But I think if we think about what the human need is, that we can look at specific calls. So whether it's dementia research, whether it's advanced care planning research, you look at the specific calls and work out how the AI tools or technology can be used to inform that. We can get started. We don't need to be developers or designers. We don't need to go and do that. But there's a lot of work about the ethics of it, about what are the risks of this, what are the challenges, what are the ways that we could research this better, which could carry funding to do work on AI without having to do the fancy things that we've talked about. There's all the questions that people may have in their heads are all research questions. And because they're all research questions, there's probably lots of different funders which are out there to go for.
I can feel you searching now. Okay, thank you. I think we kind of need to round up, but I don't know about you, I could listen to this for a very long time. I think it's been really interesting. I think for many of us, somebody put one of the questions about, as humans, it's hard to keep up, isn't it? It's almost going so quickly. And I think what you've done today is give us a really lovely insight into where those changes are happening, how they might be helpful, and some of the things that we can actually just be a little cautious about. And I think that's been incredibly helpful today. So perhaps I can ask you to give a warm thank you to Amy, and thank you all very much.